Welcome to The Bone, the podcast that goes deeper. Here we cut through the noise and get straight to the core of the issues that matter. From real stories to raw truths, we dive deep into the conversations that shape our world and challenge our thinking. We're not afraid to dig in and get to the marrow of it all. Whether it's life, culture, or business in sports medicine, we're here to break it down raw and real. No filters, no fluff, just to the bone. With your host, Shelby Daly, we're getting to the bone. This is a clinically pressed, approved CEU podcast. Find the quiz to gain credit at clinicallypressed.org/courses. Clinically Pressed Company, making the complicated simple through results that give back. Find out more at clinicallypressed.org. Let's get started.
Welcome back to The Bone. Today we have Gavin Marco, a recent graduate from Ostana University, and he had reached out to me on LinkedIn about talking about new graduates, mentorship, all these different things. Today I'm giving him the microphone and he's gonna run the show. So welcome to the show, Gavin.
Hey, Shelby. Thanks for having me today. This is a great honor, I think, especially for the profession of having me on as a new graduate here.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited to see what you have to say.
Perfect. So my interest today involves mentorship, especially for young development, especially for our new grads and young professionals out there. I think we're kind of thrown out there a lot of times and not 100% sure kind of where to go for guidance, especially if you're getting involved with PRN work or working on your own at a high school setting specifically, I would say. Colleges, you kind of have a little bit more of that supporting cast, and especially at those bigger high schools, you have plenty of staff, or you can have up to plenty of staff there. So it's not quite as big as a deal, but when you're on your own, finding a mentor is kind of a bigger deal, and I think you should definitely look into it. Not to say that your coworkers can't be that for you, and I think the best companies out there definitely try to implement stuff like that. I think it's kind of a newer thing. One of the companies I've done stuff for internships and then looking at doing work for has kind of a built-in thing in some of their locations with it, but obviously that's not always the case for everyone. So even if you're looking at hiring athletic trainers, I think building in a program would be very helpful.
Yeah. Well, I guess, can you give us a little background of how your clinical rotations with your preceptors went? Can you give a definition of what your interpretation of a mentor is supposed to be and what that relationship's supposed to look like?
For sure. So my love for this idea of mentorship stems all the way back to kind of high school when I started looking more into career opportunities. Anyone can be a mentor. It's definitely not something that has to be designated or picked out. Some people do choose that route, and I think for me it works better to have a little bit more structure, but obviously it can be as informal as you want it to be, going for coffee, whatever. But I've had people talking about guidance career ever since then, up until college when I was in undergrad. So I did a 5-year program. So I jumped straight into my master's while still finishing up. During that process of transitioning, Augustana actually provided me a mentor through our Student Success Center from a past graduate. His name was Zach. He was very great, but he was in industrial athletic training, which was something I didn't even know existed at that point. So we had kind of a monthly conversation. We had a little bit of homework to do with that. But then once he kind of gave me some ideas about his young professional life and where he's gone from there. Then obviously once you transition into clinicals and then eventually work, I think anyone that you serve under, along with coworkers, definitely can provide that role. But I think taking that extra step to find someone maybe outside of your perspective, like Zach did for me, is a great option as well.
Yeah. And I guess what are you supposed to obtain from a mentoree relationship at the end of the day? Like, are they supposed to keep you on track for things? Are they teaching you new things? Are they a sounding board? Like, how do you see what type of advice are they supposed to be giving you?
For sure. I think to kind of define mentorship, to go back to that question, I skimmed over that. We have to be able to define the mentor-mentee relationship. I think it's a mutual conversation. I think the mentor may pour a little bit more into the mentee, but I think also the mentee can kind of advance professional development and such with new perspectives and kind of what's more current is what I found. With my clinical education, we kept mostly on campus the first year at Augustana. So we have D1 hockey and then all of our other sports are D2. So we had a little bit of collegiate development that way, kind of seeing different parts of that. But then going into my second year, well, let me rephrase that. It gets a little weird with the whole 2-year program. Technically, the first year is divided into my 2 undergrad years. But the second portion of what would be that first year would be more kind of off campus. We have a ton of hospital systems and other clinical sites. So we kind of more spread our wings and go out on our own at that point. And then lastly, we get to pick our choice. So then I decided to go to our across the town rival, the University of Sioux Falls, and work with their football team. So that made for a fun game day atmosphere on our rivalry day. But under all those, I've had plenty of different mentors and people I've been able to bounce ideas off of. And just kind of get a general idea of what I'm looking for as a professional. And even though they may not have that idea of what they want, and we might be completely separated in that sense, they still can lift me up in that way. But it's definitely someone with a little bit more experience and someone with a little bit less experience trying to find a middle ground and lift each other up in the profession, I would say.
Yeah. So I guess, sorry, I forgot the name of the guy that was in the industrial setting that was working with you. Do you still keep in contact with him, or did that kind of fizzle out as you graduated? Like how is that relationship still going?
Yeah, so he actually has liked my post on LinkedIn. I've kind of tried to develop my career as more of a someone trying to advocate for the profession. It hasn't been nearly as formal, but Zach's been great. He would definitely, if I had any questions, I still have his phone number. But obviously, just at this point, I've had so many other inputs, I haven't even needed to really reach back out to him.
Gotcha.
But one thing I do appreciate
when we're talking about this, okay.
You go. With the way our master's has transitioned with having that last year be all clinical immersion for the most part, is you kind of have a built-in mentor and preceptor at that point. So for the 6 to 12 months or whatever it ends up being with how your program's designated, I appreciate having someone that you have that one spot to go to.
Yeah. So when you posed the question to me on LinkedIn about mentorship, what are you experiencing right now, or even your classmates, if you still talk to them about it, if they're struggling with it? What are you seeing within the profession that is maybe not as strong as what you were expecting, or what was your expectation that's not being met? What is your perception on this topic right now, and why do you think it's such a big deal?
Yeah. At this point, I am very close with my classmates. I'm very thankful for them, but we're kind of all going our separate ways for the most part. A couple of them are going to PT school and other professional development. But I think the ones that are staying in the profession don't have quite that connection to mentorship through previous experiences that I do. But I think they're going to get it with their new locations that they're going to, because I think they're all going to have very proficient staff members that can help them out in that sense. But as for me, I would say I'm doing a lot of PR. I'm doing a lot of different opportunities around. So I work in a clinic, or I'm going to start working in a clinical setting. So I'll have my built-in pathway that way. But I'm also going to be doing a lot of PRN work, which it's kind of all free on my own at that point. So I think being able to go out, and especially for someone that may not have that experience, learning about the emergency medicine EAPs, techniques and trades that I've never even thought of. Obviously, being from here and staying in town, I haven't got to see other locations as much, so my branches aren't quite as wide to say.
So would you say that there's just a discomfort in being able to go out and do the per diem or even other job opportunities? Do you feel like you need a mentor that has worked in a setting like per diem, or the specific setting that you're looking to get a job in, and you're just having a difficult time finding someone that can give you guidance? I'm just trying to learn more about what you specifically need, because I had my experience when I graduated 10 years ago, and I
Mhm.
just want to make sure it lines up for what you were experiencing too.
Yeah, I would say we have some built-in connections. Like I know the Gather page on the NATA website is an option. There's not a ton of people from my experience in the clinic for my desired choices at this point, but I think it's an area we can really work on growing. I mean, in the nature of this and how our curriculum and then our work environment is, I think there's a sense of mentorship. It's just not very formalized at this point. Um, I've always kind of had an inclination for the clinic just due to the various my job before in college was working as a pre-post PACU PCT, a patient care tech. So I enjoy working with our nursing and our doctors and whatnot. So I've gotten to see more of the orthopedic side of things along with other surgical professions. But when it comes to the per diem work, it's definitely a lot more out there for me, and I do not feel very comfortable with trying to figure out what equipment do I need, what are the best sources for how to pick up work in my area, especially since South Dakota is a little bit more rural and not so many job opportunities here specifically at this point, but it is growing.
Yeah. Well, I guess when I graduated in 2015, I definitely
Mhm.
had a lot of the same difficulties that you are experiencing. I felt like I got kicked out of the nest, and
Mhm.
the transition period was difficult because, it was maybe I didn't set a good enough expectation in my last clinical rotation of, okay, I'm just running this by you, I'm going along with it. You know, that gradual push to making clinical decisions and running with my
Mhm.
program independently.
Right.
So I could see how that's very difficult in I have to check in with everything, and then now I'm making all decisions um, without having to work around the repercussions with someone kind of giving me guide rails while I'm
Mhm.
working through it. So I can definitely see how that's probably still a problem, and especially since the GA ship program has gone away, you know, that transition period doesn't exist anymore for people that would
Mhm.
want to do it. I don't necessarily think athletic trainers should necessarily take internship roles right after certification. I think it's still a great pathway if you want to get into a specific area like professional sports, because uh, not that ancestral is bad, but you have to kind of go through different path or a certain pathway to really get known in like professional soccer to
Mhm.
be hired later down the line. So it's building up those relationships and networks. And I guess my perception from what you're saying, you can tell me if I'm totally wrong, is that you kind of wish that someone would kind of reach out and take you under their wing and help you along the way, which I don't think is going to happen, if I'm totally honest. I think it's really getting in front of people and networking. And I don't know what your program was like. When I was going through the program, I was definitely volunteering, getting out there. I was doing a lot of jujitsu events,
Mhm.
which was super fun as a student because I was getting a lot of reps of, quick evaluations, making calls with a certified athletic trainer there, obviously, but a lot of triage, those hands-on skills that some clinical rotations really don't give you enough of. So when
Mhm.
I was a student, I really loved the fast-paced triage environment. So I would say that Ethan Kreisworth was definitely a mentor of mine, which we
Nice.
became business partners later on. I created a job for myself with him, was doing administrative scheduling, trying to increase profits for the company, all these different things for him. Since he was really good at teaching the skills, there was just the business side could have been stronger.
Right.
So that's how I made that relationship. Um, you know, Soccer was a big thing for me, professional sports. So I
Mhm.
did a lot of volunteer work with like AVP volleyball in Southern California, beach
Mhm.
volleyball, and I made some great connections there. I made a contact with the chiropractor, Tom Iwashida, and I still talk to him to this day, even though I'm not in Southern California. And we've also talked about different business deals, possibly like a sports medicine camp or something in Southern California. So I think it's really pushing yourself and getting involved is one thing that I don't necessarily see a lot of athletic training students doing these days. And, I'm not working in the clinical setting as much anymore, but I feel that possibly there's been some restrictions from KD regulations or your program not to really go out and get involved and get in front of other people. And I think that's difficult. Where I see the weakness of the preceptorship and clinical rotations is that you got eight weeks possibly with somebody, but they're always going to have a new student coming through. And unless they make a really, really great connection personality wise, they got another one coming. And I think they try their best to give feedback and keep available as best as possible, but they're still rolling in the clinical rotation area. So they have a lot of students coming through, and that's not an excuse either. But from my perception, I feel that it's both sides of the mentor and mentee relationship to come together and figure out what goals the mentee wants to achieve and what the mentor from their experience can provide that mentee in guidance. They don't necessarily have to have the same background or anything. I feel like it's almost like dating is you are looking for a relationship where you can be a little bit more raw with them and work through problems, and they'll be a very good listener and be able to help guide you in possibly the next steps of what you should do. Obviously, that's your decision on what you want to do. I don't know if it needs to be setting specific as a mentor-mentee relationship, but that always helps sometimes, especially with the specificity that many different settings are experiencing these days. Like you said, with industrial athletic training, that's athletic training, but there are different responsibilities that need to be met. There's money on the line. It's employees trying to make their paycheck for their families, where college, I would say it's more of an ego thing of they're out there to go win and be involved and go set records or, those types of things. So there's different things that are on the line. So trying to deal and approach with those can be totally different. So yeah, I don't know what your plans are for networking. Obviously, I've seen you on LinkedIn reaching out, putting out broad strokes of, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, basically, putting your post in a summary mode. But I think it's doing research on people and, like you reached out to me to do this podcast. I'm going to give you the best advice as I can. I've obviously done a lot of per diem, so we can always talk about that. I'm not sure what the culture is like in South Dakota ultimately, but I worked in, California and Pennsylvania for a per diem, and I've ran 2 different companies for staffing. So I kind of know what the expectations are, how you can best prepare yourself. But obviously there's going to be opportunities where you're going to be running the show by yourself as your own little company, working for random events and not necessarily through a company. So how do you best prepare yourself for that? And, I can definitely give you advice on that if you need it. And then, for full-time work, where are you trying to end up? We can put it out there on the airwaves and try to connect you with somebody of what you're trying to achieve, setting-wise, passion-wise, demographic, entrepreneurial-wise. Like, what are you trying to achieve as an athletic trainer? Because I think sometimes we get boxed in of, well, I want to work this sport, I want to work this setting, but we don't really talk about what really drives you and what you want to do in your personal life also. Of if you want to have a family one day, or you're a big traveler, how do we achieve that with your job, or make sure you have time to be able to go do personal travel. You may have some hobbies that, you want to make sure that you cut out in your day or in your schedule to make sure that you can keep with that team atmosphere, or you may have a huge family that you are heavily involved with and need availability to jump in and help them when you can. So I think with your mentor-mentee question, I think it does bring up a bigger rooted problem of we're not really asking students before they enter a program of not just what do you want to do with athletic training, but like I guess, where do you want to be in athletic training and what do you want to do with your degree and certification? I think we get very superficial on talking to athletic training students about what their goals are. And professional soccer was my goal, but it was really, if I would have introspected a little bit more, it was working with elite top tier athletes that performance was their goal and getting to the best of their ability. And that opens up more doors, because then when I'm going into my education of continuing education specialization, that's, if you look at my resume, a lot of the certifications and certificates that I have are for performance-based manual therapies, stress management, a lot of different things that come together that enhance an athlete, which I thought would make me a better candidate for professional soccer. But as I've learned, nobody gives you a raise for all the certifications that you have, all the money that you've invested in yourself. They're not going to be like, oh my God, like, let's give you an extra $10,000 because you've achieved all these different things. Usually where you want to go is who you know. I found out very quickly into my 10 years. So that's why when I graduated, my goal was go out and network, work the free events, get in front of people, get more hands-on experience in these random sports. I mean, I never thought I'd work BMX, skateboarding, surfing, because those aren't at top of mind in athletic training. Even jiu-jitsu, not a lot of people really love combat sports, but I think it's the most fun because I think athletic training gets utilized the most in those high rep environments for triage. So, I mean, my first certified event by myself was LFL football, lingerie football at USC Stadium. Wow. I was the only athletic trainer with 2 EMTs. And of course, one of the girls dislocated her shoulder. And it was, because I had gone out and watched it a few times at jiu-jitsu, I was able to get it together, send them along. And then, just that relationship I built with the EMTs, I got into film. So I was doing music videos, commercial shoots, and then I had done two movies during COVID. So, that's where I think networking doesn't get harped on enough, is it doesn't need to be just athletic training. I was interviewing at one of the top cosmetology plastic surgeons in Beverly Hills at one point too, as an athletic trainer. So, and that was from I think that was the lingerie football also. There was a guy there that was a nurse, and we kept in touch, and he was like, hey, come check out this doctor and see how it would fit, So it really is the people that you have to have the pursuit to do, because obviously every athletic trainer loves the profession. They want to see, they want to help and see it go far. But as we are stereotyped, we're so busy, we don't get our heads out of our butts sometimes to see what other people really need. So sometimes you have to pursue it of, building those relationships, asking someone if you feel that they're a good fit, of like, hey, can we, I don't think I've ever asked anybody to be my mentor. It's just, I keep bugging them. So maybe they're sick of me. But, it's opening the door that you can keep asking them questions. And it's not necessarily like an every day, every week, every month thing. I go a long time without talking to some of my friends and mentors, I would say. But they're always there to pick up the phone when I'm having a tough time and stuff. So that's why you're dating for a friendship, mentorship, you always think of someone older, I think. And, everybody has their own experiences in life. So I wouldn't necessarily put on the goggles for someone that's older as a mentor either.
Right.
I mean, in my program, I was 22 when I graduated, but we had people that were 45 in the program. And I mean, we're still certified the same amount, but some of them had careers before we were in the master's program. So trying to do that. And that's where I was asking about mentorship. I mean, are we trying to do domain 5, like the business leadership, how to deal with people, or is it more trying to learn more on the clinical side? And I think they can obviously come together, but you have to figure out what you feel your weaknesses are and where you want to be risen up. And you can have multiple mentors for the different things. I go to certain people for certain things when I run into it. If I have a crazy injury, I go to Dr. Ethan Kreisworth and ask him to work it out with me. When I'm having problems with specific people, I usually go to, who do I go to? Simi Simkovich. I mean, he's very close in age with me, but we have somewhat the same personalities. So it's always us kind of working together to deal with somebody, and we kind of understand how we're dealing with it, but giving an outside opinion, we're able to reflect a little bit better of, well, maybe that came off a little bit more harsh than it needed to. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Where is your head going, and what other questions are coming up?
Yeah, you brought up a ton of great points there, and I probably can't remember all of them, but I was just, when you were going there, things started running in my head, and I completely agree with you on a lot of the things you said there. Things don't need to be formal. My classmates are all going to different areas, and the people I've met, I've gone to a lot of NSCA conferences here. We have a South Dakota Athletic Training for Students Association event going on occasionally or once a year. So kind of networking with different professionals in that sense. Along with my job, like I said, I work with anesthesia, all the different surgeons at the hospital I work at, plenty of nurses. And I completely agree. It's about who you're working with and making sure you can keep those connections, because especially if you're staying in an area, they're going to all be around, and it's not going to change in that sense. Now, obviously, if you move, you're changing different jurisdiction on the laws of athletic training and such. But to promote within a state, obviously, my experience is only in South Dakota at this point. It's bringing those outside thoughts in and working around those around me instead of bringing my thoughts to them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But you can go.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I think the best mentors, even though they're at the same level as you, are your classmates, because you're all going through it together. I don't know if you guys have a group chat or whatever to pose
100%.
questions, but yeah, you're all figuring it out. So it may click the way that they present it rather than an experienced person trying to explain it to you. So, you just have to utilize your resource. So I think we make this mentorship so formalized feeling, and it can come down to just the relationships and friends that are right next to you. It's who's going to want to work with you to become a better clinician, a better professional. They're going to help accelerate your growth. So I think you have to keep that in mind of who's actually looking out for you and wanting you to do your best. So I think that's where it gets confused with the preceptors. Yes, they're there to teach you, but it's not the same thing as mentoring, if that makes sense. You get them for a short amount of time. They don't necessarily know you as well. 8 weeks, you can learn a lot, but, like I had said, I'm not discrediting any preceptors, because I know there's a lot of them that care about the people that come through and work with them. But, I think sometimes we haven't set preceptors up well enough to be a true mentor role either. They're working their full-time job, and then the addition of helping a student and trying to teach them. I don't know if the resources are provided. I've asked the question of what this role is supposed to be, and do we adequately prepare people to be in these preceptors? Sometimes people get shoved in because the program just needs a preceptor.
Right.
And I've seen newly certified athletic trainers get pushed into preceptor roles. And I mean, that's not neither good or bad, but sometimes that preceptor just needs the support of a program so that they can keep learning also. So it's really that catch-22 of, at least they're providing a clinical rotation, but at the same time, is it the best thing for the student, and are they providing the best experience? So
Exactly.
And I'm sure South Dakota has some young preceptors running around with how remote and dispersed it is. So
yeah, and we kind of
you go.
pick and choose our programs a little bit different. We actually have requirements for our preceptors for our final rotations, our longer ones. They have to be at least 5 years certified, and like they have to pass all, like we do a lot of interviewing processes, making sure that fit happens. So on the programming side for those universities and such, I think it's important to implement stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think I know one of the things was when I was in the program, obviously I had a set standards of what I wanted to experience through setting or sport. And I think Cal Baptist at the time did a pretty good job of trying to set people up with personalities too.
Good.
I was disappointed because we had professional bull riding come through town, and we had the opportunity to try to sign up for it. Obviously there's limited spots, but I didn't get it. And I was really interested in triage sports, and I just didn't understand. And afterwards they told me, like, well, we don't know how you would have done with, cowboys and the harshities of what's going on in the background and all that. And we weren't sure if you would react. And I was like, well, but I need to be put in those environments to figure out how I would react. So it was just an interesting reflection, and, who knows what would have happened, the butterfly effect, if I would have done bull riding, but, obviously I had amazing experiences anyway and had made great connections and all that. So, the program directors, clinical rotation managers, they kind of know what they've been doing the few years that they've been doing it. So there's a reason to all the rhyme and sound. But what else you got for me?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like you said, it's all about kind of the fit. I know even in job interviews I've had recently, I always throw out there, I'm not looking for the job I'm looking for. I'm looking for the fit with the people around me in that job. Because those coworkers, your staff, your patients, insert whoever, your company, whatever, it all goes under at the end of the day. If you can't get along with them, you're not going to enjoy what you're doing. But if you're enjoying who you're around and making the most of it, it can make the most mundane things the best time of your life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great topic to talk about too, is after graduation, you're just ready to go make money. And obviously you're never stuck in the role. I mean, there are some contractual agreements sometimes, but most of the time you can probably walk away at any time you need. And especially those first 5 years, I would just keep applying to jobs. I know it's a lot of work, it's time consuming, but getting more reps with interviews and all that type of stuff, and what are the different requirements that you're going to experience in an interview process, are great ways to learn what employers are looking for. You possibly learn about things that are being offered at a different employer than the one that you're currently at. You could possibly ask for it, or it may be something that makes you want to change your job. But it's an interview for both parties. We always think it's kind of one way of the employer to the employee, when the employee really, it's like I said, it's dating. You're trying to figure out the personalities. Everybody's going to put on a smile and make it sound amazing to work there most of the time. But it's so superficial. You don't know, is the athletic director really difficult to work with? Do they really understand what an athletic trainer is? How is the support from the AD on your department? So, I mean, a question that I've always been throwing in is, there's a better way to say it, but basically, like, was there anything that I answered that was confusing to you, to help bring clarity? And then secondly, of what does what does success mean to you, or what are different key performance indicators that you have within your program? And I think if we can start asking those questions in interviews, it starts kind of exposing, is there a ladder for me to go up salary wise or even title wise? A lot of departments are pretty small. So what does advancement mean in this position? Or is this a position where I'm just going to get experience? So that's one. Or I had another one. Somebody had posted on Facebook what questions I should ask in an interview. And it was something about, what does success look like? Or, what resources are you providing for me to keep advancing and keep growing as a clinician? So like professional development funding, or, does the group do CEUs together? Or, do they go out and do just regular professional development, like leadership course or some of those things? How is the group keeping each other accountable? Because we get so bogged down with work and schedules during peak seasons. What else are they doing to help make sure that they're keeping current and, breaking away and really creating relationships with their coworkers? So kind of part of the mentorship question for the employment aspect of it also.
Right. And that goes down to the importance of Domain 5 for new grads, because I know a lot of us, especially my class, were saying, well, the questions on the BOC weren't very applicable to the actual skill set required. But in the reality, that's the skill set you need to find that fit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, oh shoot, I had something else, but there it went. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm hoping that this kind of opens your mind, and I hope other students that are listening kind of understand that really nobody's going to approach you and be like, I want to be your mentor.
Right.
Usually, people open up the chance to mentor. Either they're going to have you pay for it, which I agree, disagree. It depends. I mean, if they're providing specific skills or knowledge for a certain setting, that makes sense. So if you really feel that you need a mentor, it's going to be you digging down and reaching out, networking, finding people that fit your personality, that it's easy to talk to, and are open to being available to you. So that's the advice I would give, and it's somebody that wants to see you grow too. Especially, that's where it's hard. And I think that's why we think a mentor needs to be older or have many more years of experience, is that they have all the answers. But I think even people around you with their different experiences can help build you up, because you're all figuring it out and you guys will be able to communicate more effectively.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. So, well, anything else while I have you on the mic?
I think that hit a lot of the key points. I think that was a really good introduction for people that are looking into potentially networking and finding themselves their personal mentor, even if it is formal or informal. And I think we definitely talked a lot more about the skill set that revolves around.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad that we were able to jump on and talk about it a little bit, because I do think this is something that isn't talked about enough, is
100%.
Mentorship, preceptorship. They're two different things, and we think that they're the same, and they're not necessarily at the end of the day.
Yeah, they can definitely overlap, that's for sure, and it takes a lot more effort to do said job, but it's definitely not always that way.
Exactly. So, well, as you're going through your newly certified journey, if more things come up, definitely reach out and we can talk it through and see how I can help you on addressing some things. And
for sure.
I think these are great for the profession to listen about and be aware of. So thanks for reaching out to me.
Yeah, thank you, Shelby. I appreciate you having me.
That's it for today's episode of To the Bone. I hope we've sparked some new thoughts, challenged your perspectives, or simply reminded you to dig a little deeper. Remember, life isn't just about what's on the surface. Sometimes you've got to cut deeper and get to the bone of what really matters. To the Bone podcast is a product of Daily LLC. It's hosted and produced by Shelby Daly, ATC, and Randy Daly. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can be present. For more on the show, visit www.tothebonepodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Get involved in the conversation. You can find us at www.tothebonepodcast.com. Drop us topic suggestions or be a potential guest. We're all about connecting with you, our listeners. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep cutting deep.